I've found that whenever the U.S. government says something, all you have to do is flip it around and you get the real meaning. Like separate but equal. Flip it, you get separate but unequal. Here's another one. Equal justice under law. Those are the words written above the main entrance to the U.S. Supreme Court building. I'll talk about the Supreme Court's unequal justice under the law coming up. This is KRT, Critical Race Theory. It's not the one they teach in law schools, but the one banned in public schools. The highest court in the country, the Supreme Court, serves as the final avenue for individuals seeking justice. Consequently, black individuals with grievances resorted to approaching the court. Here's an account of the outcomes of such endeavors. Dred Scott versus Sanford in 1856, also known as the Dred Scott decision. When an enslaved person petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court for his freedom, the court ruled against him, also ruling that the Bill of Rights didn't apply to black people. If it did, the majority ruling argued then they would be permitted the full liberty of speech in public and in private, to hold public meetings upon political affairs, and to keep and carry arms wherever they went. In 1856, both the justices in the majority and the white aristocracy they represented found this idea too horrifying to contemplate in 1868. Pace versus Alabama, 1883. In 1883, Alabama, interracial marriage could get you 2 to 7 years hard labor in a state penitentiary. When a black man named Tony Pace and a white woman named Mary Cox challenged the law, the Supreme Court upheld it on grounds that the law, inasmuch as it prevented whites from marrying blacks and black people from marrying whites, was race neutral and did not violate the 14th Amendment. The ruling was finally overturned in Loving versus Virginia in 1967. The Civil Rights Cases of 1883. The Civil Rights Act, which mandated an end to racial segregation in public accommodations, actually passed twice in U.S. history, once in 1875 and once in 1964. On October 15, 1883, the U.S. Supreme Court combined 5 legal cases known as the Civil Rights Cases into a single ruling due to their similarity. In the landmark decision, the court declared the Civil Rights Act of 1875 unconstitutional, leading to the establishment of Jim Crow laws that entrenched racial segregation in the United States. The court's 8-1 verdict invalidated a crucial provision in the Civil Rights Act that prohibited racial discrimination in public places, including hotels, restaurants, theaters, and railroads. This provision was commonly known as public accommodations. The ruling prevented Congress from addressing racial segregation and effectively sanctioned the idea of separate but equal, which would dominate American society until the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It was a devastating blow to the rights of black Americans. Next up, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. As I mentioned earlier, most people are familiar with the phrase separate but equal. That's the never-achieved standard that defined racial segregation until Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. But not everybody knows that it comes from this ruling, where Supreme Court justices bowed to political pressure and found an interpretation of the 14th Amendment that would still allow them to keep public institutions segregated. 1899, Cumming versus Richmond. When 3 black families in Richmond County, Virginia, faced the closing of the area's only public black high school, they petitioned the court to allow their children to finish their education at the white high school instead. It only took the Supreme Court 3 years to violate its own separate but equal standard by establishing that if there was no suitable black school in a given district, black students would simply have to do without an education. When in doubt, go without. This just sounds crazy. And finally, Ozawa versus the United States in 1922. A Japanese immigrant, Takeo Ozawa, attempted to become a full U.S. citizen despite a 1906 policy limiting naturalization to whites and black people. Ozawa's argument was a new one. Rather than challenging the constitutionality of the statute himself, which under the racist court would have probably been a waste of time anyway, he simply attempted to establish that Japanese Americans were white. The court rejected this logic. Nice try, buddy. There are more of these gems, but we are out of time. If you would like to know the others, email me and I will send them to you. This has been Critical Race Theory. Thanks for checking in. Please like and subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. I'll see you next time.